explored differences in moral traits like altruism and compassion. While some studies show that religious individuals tend to donate more to charity, this effect is often directed primarily toward religious causes and members of their own in-group. When it comes to broader universal compassion for strangers or outgroups, the evidence is mixed, with some studies showing non-believers to be more motivated by indiscriminate empathy. For example, laboratory experiments testing generosity toward anonymous strangers have found no significant difference between believers and non-believers. The moral impulses of empathy and fairness appear to be fundamental human traits, not exclusive products of religious conditioning. Furthermore, studies examining moral reasoning find that non-religious individuals often rely more on deliberative, consequence-based ethical thinking, while religious individuals may lean more on obedience to authority and divine command. This does not make one group inherently more moral than the other, but it does highlight different pathways to ethical decision-making. The conclusion from this body of evidence is clear. There is no discernible moral deficit among non-believers. People are motivated to be good for many reasons: empathy, social connection, a desire for a stable society, and a personal sense of integrity. Religion can be one of those motivators, but it is demonstrably not the only one, nor is it necessarily the best one. Despite the evidence from secular societies, defenders of religious morality present several powerful counter-arguments. They contend that secular ethics, while perhaps functional on the surface, lack the solid foundation necessary to be truly robust and enduring. One of their primary concerns is the issue of moral authority. For them, a moral law is only meaningful if it comes from an ultimate, transcendent lawgiver. Without God, they argue, morality becomes a matter of human opinion. What one person considers right, another can consider wrong, and there is no final arbiter to decide between them. This, they claim, leads inevitably to moral relativism, where anything goes. This argument from authority is closely linked to the problem of moral motivation. Why should a person behave morally, especially when it is difficult or requires self-sacrifice? Religion provides a clear and compelling answer: to please God and secure eternal salvation. The promise of heaven and the threat of hell are powerful incentives that, for centuries, have encouraged people to overcome their selfish desires. Secular ethics, in this view, struggle to provide an equally motivating reason. The abstract goal of human flourishing or the greatest good may not be enough to inspire a person to risk their life for a stranger or to resist the temptation of personal gain at others' expense. Moreover, proponents of religious morality argue that our most cherished moral intuitions, such as the inherent value and dignity of every human life, are best explained by a religious worldview. The idea that all humans are created in the image of God provides a powerful justification for universal human rights. From a purely secular or evolutionary perspective, they ask, why should we believe in the equal worth of all people? Nature is filled with hierarchy and competition. The concept of inherent human dignity, they suggest, is a Judeo-Christian idea that secularism has borrowed without acknowledging its source. Without that religious foundation, the principle itself becomes fragile and difficult to defend. Finally, there is a concern about moral knowledge. How can we know what is right and wrong? Religion offers what it claims is a direct revelation from the creator of the universe. Holy books and religious traditions provide a clear, unchanging source of moral truth that is not subject to the whims of culture or time. Secular ethics, by contrast, rely on fallible human reason. Philosophers disagree, scientific understanding evolves, and cultural norms shift. This can make secular morality seem unstable and uncertain. For those who believe in religious morality, the certainty of divine command provides a comforting and necessary anchor in a turbulent world. Secular thinkers offer compelling responses to the concerns raised by defenders of religious morality. The charge that secularism leads to moral relativism is a fundamental misunderstanding. Secular ethics are not about anything goes. They are about grounding morality in a real and objective standard, the well-being of conscious creatures. While the specifics of how to maximize well-being can be complex and open to debate, the underlying principle is not arbitrary. Actions that cause needless suffering and diminish flourishing are objectively bad. This provides a firm, non-relative foundation for morality that is rooted in the observable world, not in ancient texts of dubious origin. The question of motivation is also addressed directly. Secular thinkers argue that the motivation for moral behavior does not need to come from fear of punishment or hope for a supernatural reward. Instead, it can arise from more immediate and relatable sources. Empathy, the ability to feel and understand what others are experiencing, is a powerful motivator for altruism. Our own desire to live in a safe, stable, and cooperative society provides a rational incentive to treat others well. The satisfaction of living with integrity and the joy of seeing others thrive are profound rewards in their own right. These earthly motivations are arguably more noble and reliable than those based on a cosmic carrot and stick. The assertion that human rights depend on a religious framework is historically and philosophically weak. The concept of being made in the image of God has, for most of history, coexisted with slavery, holy wars, and the brutal persecution of heretics and non-believers. The modern human rights movement was largely a product of the Enlightenment, a secular intellectual awakening that championed reason and individual liberty over religious dogma. We can ground the idea of human rights in the simple recognition that we are all conscious beings with a shared capacity for joy and suffering. Our common humanity is a sufficient basis for our common rights, no divine endorsement necessary. Finally, the idea that divine command offers moral certainty is an illusion. The holy books of different religions contain contradictory moral commands. Even within a single tradition, scriptures are filled with ambiguities and morally problematic passages that require extensive interpretation. Believers must pick and choose which commands to follow. Few Christians advocate for stoning adulterers, for instance. This process of selection and interpretation is itself an act of human moral reasoning. Believers are already using their own moral intuitions to decide which parts of their holy books are good. Secular ethics simply proposes that we do this openly and honestly, using all the tools of reason, science, and empathy at our disposal. The debate over religion and morality ultimately leads us to one of philosophy's deepest questions. Is morality objective? Does a universal right and wrong exist independently of human opinions and beliefs? Many religious believers argue that God is the only possible source for such objective moral truths. This is often framed through a philosophical problem known as the Euthyphro dilemma, first posed by Plato. It asks, is an action morally good because God commands it, or does God command it because it is morally good? Each option presents a problem for the idea that morality depends on God. If an action is good simply because God commands it, then morality becomes arbitrary. God could have commanded us to torture children, and that would have been morally good. This makes the concept of goodness seem hollow and reduces morality to mere obedience to power. Most believers find this conclusion unsettling as it contradicts their intuition that God is good and commands things that are inherently right. On the other hand, if God commands an action because it is already good, then that means a standard of goodness exists independently of God. This would make God a moral guide, perhaps a perfect one, but not the ultimate source of morality itself. This is where a secular, scientific approach to morality offers a compelling alternative. It proposes that objective moral truths can exist without a divine lawgiver. These truths are not mysterious metaphysical commands floating in the cosmos. They are objective facts about the well-being of conscious creatures. We can say it is objectively true that a world with more happiness, health, and cooperation is better than a world with more misery, disease, and violence. Just as there are objective truths in medicine about what promotes physical health, there can be objective truths in ethics about what promotes psychological and social well-being. This creates a moral landscape with peaks of flourishing and valleys of suffering. Our task, then, is to use reason and evidence to map this landscape. While some moral questions may be difficult and have complex answers, this does not mean that all answers are equally valid. Some actions, cultures, and policies are demonstrably better at promoting human flourishing than others. For example, a society that values education and protects the rights of women will, as an objective matter of fact, produce less suffering than a society that keeps women illiterate and treats them as property. Morality, in this view, is a developing field of knowledge, much like science. It is a shared human project of discovering how we can live together to create the best possible world, a journey that belongs to all of us, believer and non-believer alike.